If you're looking for the top 5 most broken builds to dominate base game and Shadow of the Erdtree, you came to the right place. This video will include a tanky Colossal Build that can stand up to any boss in the game, a magic katana that can shred through bosses with its magic Ash of War, the best faith weapon in Elden Ring. To this day, it can destroy bosses while you regain health from its special move. One of the best curved bleed swords that makes Elden Ring like a walk in the park. The most overpowered bleed weapon in Elden Ring that's one of the easiest weapons to use. For our first build, we have a Colossal Beast. This is one of the best colossal weapons in Elden Ring. This build is like the Blasphemous Blade ability. This weapon is good for every situation. If there's a big crowd, it can destroy any groups and bosses. For the talismans, we have the Fire Scorpion. Charm this talisman, boost fire damage by 12%. This is good for the Ash of War attack that this sword has built. And next, we have the Shard of Alexander. This talisman greatly boosts the attack power of weapon skills, which is good for this weapon because we are going to use the special skill. Next, we have the Dragon Crest, Great Shield Talisman. This talisman boosts physical negation by 20%. For our last talisman, we have the Two-Handed Sword Talisman, which boosts damage deal by 15%, while two-handing your weapon, which we are going to do with this sword. For our Wondrous Physique, we have the Strength Knot Crystal. Tear this boosts our physical damage by 10%, and for our second tier, we are going to use the Green Spill Crystal Tear. At level 150, the main focus stats are Vigor, Mind, Endurance, and Strength. For Vigor, put it as 60. For Mind, put it as 25. For Endurance, put it as 30. And for your Strength, put it as high as you can, 50 plus. For our main weapon, we are using the Ruin Greatsword at max level. Physical damage is 885, and magic is 100. And for our armor, we are going to use Blade's Armor, since it has a decent amount of poise damage. For our talismans, we have Fire Scorpion Charm. This increases our fire damage by 12%. Next, we have Alexander Shard, which greatly boosts our skill damage. Next, we have Great Shield Talismans, which boost physical damage by 20%. And for our final talisman, we have the Two-Handed Sword Talisman. This gives us an extra 20% damage. And for our Wondrous Physique, we have the Strength Knot Crystal Tear and the Green Burst Tear. Next, we have one of the best curved swords in the game. This is a bleed build, and it's one of the best on this list. We are going to use Seppuku for the Ash of War. This puts bleed onto our weapon, which makes it even more overpowered. We are going to dual curve sword and jump attack for buffs. We have Flame, Grant Me Strength, and Golden Vow. These two will make our build do the damage we desire. And for our talismans, we have Lord of Blood Exaltation. This boosts our attack power. When bleed occurs, next is Claw Talisman. This talisman boosts our jump attack by 15%. This talisman is great for this build since we're going to be jumping a lot. Next talisman is Winged Sword Insignia. This talisman boosts our attack power by 13%. And for our last talisman, we have Millicent Prosthesis. This talisman is similar to the Sword of Insignia. It increases your attack power by 11%. And for our Wondrous Physique, we have Thorny Cracked Tear and Blood-Sucking Cracked Tear, which will be very good for this build. For our stats at level 150, the main stats for this build are Vigorous, Dexterity, and Arcane. We have 60. Vigor, this will be enough to tank the hits to get our attacks off. Mind, put it as 30. Dexterity, put it as 42, and put Arcane as 45. The main weapon for this build is the Bandit's Curved Sword. And for our armor, we will use the White Mask Raptor's Feathers Rakshasa Gloves and Rakshasa Pants. If you don't have those, replace them with Blade's Armor. For our talismans, we have Lord of Blood Exaltation, which boosts our damage by 20%. Next, we have the Claw Talisman, which boosts our jump attack by 15%. Next, we have Rotten Sword of Insignia, which boosts attack power by 13%. And for our last talisman, we have Millicent Prosthesis, which boosts attack power by 11%. And for our Wondrous Physique, we have the Thorny Cracked Tear and Blood-Sucking Cracked Tear. If you don't have the Blood-Sucking Tear, switch it for Green Burst. Next, we have one of the best builds in Elden Ring. This is the best faith weapon in Elden Ring. This build heals you and does an insane amount of damage when you use the Taker's Flame ability. This weapon's ability is close and long range, so it's perfect for every situation. Now let's get into the buffs and talismans. For the buffs, we have Flame, Grant Me Strength, which gives you a plus 15% fire damage. For the next buff, we have Golden Vow, which gives a plus 20% damage. And for the talismans, we have the Fire Scorpion Charm, which is going to boost fire damage by 12%. Next, we have Shard of Alexander. This talisman greatly boosts the attack power of skills, which is perfect because we are going to mainly use the Taker's Flame ability. Next, we have Godfrey Icon, which boosts charged attacks and spells. This talisman boosts our damage by 15%. Next, we have the Talisman of the Dead. This talisman is perfect for Blasphemous Blade, since the Taker's Flame ability uses magma for its attack. This talisman boosts your damage by 15%. For our wondrous physique, we have the Green Burst Tear and the Flame Shrouding Cracked Tear. These two are perfect for Blasphemous Blade. The Flame Shrouding tier boosts our fire damage by 20%. We're looking at about a 60% to 80% extra damage from all these buffs together. For your stats at level 150, your main focus on this build will be Faith Mind and Endurance, Vigor at 40. Put Mind at 25, put Endurance at 30, put Faith at 60, and meet the minimum requirement for Strength. For our main weapon, we have the Blasphemous Blade at level 10, maxed out. The physical damage is 445, and the fire damage is 334 for our seal. We will be the Erdtree seal at plus 10, since it has an S scaling on Faith. If you can't get this deal, use the Finger Seal instead. For our armor set, I recommend the Rakshasa set if you have it, but if you don't, use Blade set since it has good poise and doesn't make you fat. Roll. For our talismans, we have Fire Scorpion Charm, which boosts our fire damage by 12%. Next, we have Alexander Shard, which greatly boosts attack power of skills. Next, we have Godfrey Icon, which boosts our charged attacks by 15%. And for our last talisman, we have the Talisman of the Dead, which boosts our magma damage by 15%. For our wondrous physique, we are going to use Green Burst, Cracked Tear, and Flame Shrouding. Next, we have the Best Magic Katana. This katana can be used in many ways. This weapon can break stances if you have the perfect build, which we do. This weapon's strongest ability is its Ash of War, Transient Moonlight. It can be used for short range and long range. They both deal a similar amount of damage, so if you're in a tight space, use the short range since it's faster to hit with this weapon. This weapon does not need an Ash of War, since it has a built-in one. With this build, you will use the Great Blade spell, and for the weapons, we have the Carrion Regal Scepter with the Moon Veil. Now, for this build, it can be lethal with the right buffs. So let's get into it. For this build, you will need Terra Magica, which boosts your damage by 20%. Only use this if you can. And for the talismans, we're going to use Renalus Cameo. The way you use this talisman is you hold the katana in its socket until you see a glow of red, then you release it. This buffs the damage, and this talisman is specifically good for Moon Veil. And next talisman is Magic Scorpion Charm. Of course, we are going to be doing magic damage, so this talisman is necessary. Godfrey Icon, we're going to mostly be using our Ash of War with our spells. So this talisman is essential. It gives us a plus 20% damage. Next one is the 2 Head Turtle Talisman. This talisman boosts Stamina Recovery, which you might need when you're spamming this weapon ability, especially if you don't have that much endurance. And if you don't need the Stamina Recovery, swap this one out for the Alexander Shard, which will boost your damage even more. You will have about an 80% damage boost with all these talismans. And for our buffs, we will use Golden Vow. And for our wondrous physique, we will use the Blood-Sucking Tear and the Magic Tear. Or you can replace the Blood-Sucking Tear with Green Burst Tear for your stats at level 150. Your main focus will be Intelligence, Vigor, and Dexterity. We have 60 on Vigor, which is the soft cap. For our Mind, we have 20, so you can cast enough of your Ash of War and not run out of FP. For our Endurance, we have 25, so you have enough stamina and enough equip load. And for Intelligence, put it at 45 if you have a few more levels or if you can handle lowering down your Vigor. Put Intelligence at 60 with these stats. You cannot cast Golden Vow. So if you really want to put some stats on Faith too, the main weapon on this build is the Moon Veil at max level 311, physical damage, and 422 magic damage. And we will pair it with the Carrion Regal Scepter Staff. Blade set. You want a armor set that has decent poise but also doesn't make you fat. Roll for the first talisman. We have the Magic Scorpion Charm, which boosts attack damage by 12%. Shard of Alexander greatly boosts the attack power of weapon skills. Godfrey Icon, which boosts spells and charged attack damage by 15%. Rilana's cameo increase maximum health and makes the Moonveil damage increase a lot more. For my wondrous physique mix, I'm using the Magic Shrouding Cracked Tear, which boosts magic damage, and the Green Burst Tear, which enhances stamina recovery. Next, we have the best bleed build in Elden Ring, the buffs. For this weapon, we're going to use for our Ash of War. We're going to put Seppuku on our Nagakiba, and for the incantations, we're going to use Golden Vow and Flame. Grant me strength for the talismans. We will use Lord of the Blood Exaltation. This buffs our damage by 20% next. Alexander Shard, which is perfect. If you want to use Corpse Piler ability on your Rivers of Blood, this talisman greatly boosts your attack power of your skills. Best, we have Fire Scorpion Charm. This will be good for your Corpse Piler ability. This boosts damage by 12% for our last talisman. We have Sword of Insignia. This boosts attack power by 13%. And for our wondrous physique, we have Fire Shrouding Cracked Tear, which boost fire damage, and Thorny Cracked Tear. For this weapon at level 150 is Vigor, put it as 50. For mine, put it as 30 for Endurance. Put it as 25 for Dexterity, put it as 23. And for Arcane, put it as 60. And for our build, our main weapons are Rivers of Blood and Nagakia. Make sure to max these weapons out. And for the armor, use the White Mask with Blades armor set. And for our talismans, we have Alexander Shard that greatly boost attack power of skills. Next, we have Fire Scorpion Charm, which boost fire damage by 12%. Next, we have Lord of Blood Exaltation, which boost attack power by 20%. And for our last talisman, we have Winged Sword of Insignia, which boost attack power by 13%. And for our wondrous physique, we have the Blood-Sucking Tear and Thorny Cracked Tear. If you don't have Blood-Sucking Tear, use the Green Burst Tear. And that's our top 5 weapons if you watched till the end and this was helpful. Make sure to like and subscribe.